Is Emily going to do that? Sure, you hit the right button. We don't have the police here. There you go. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. A regular meeting of the Plan Commission on Monday, March 28th at 6:30 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Wisconsin Statute Sections 19.83 and 19.84 in such form that will apprise the public and news media of subject matter that is intended for discussion and action. Roll call shows all commissioners present except for Mr. Kimmler, who is excused, and Trustee Baum, I believe, who is in a meeting or a conference in the side conference room, will be joining us shortly. At this time on the agenda is the point of public input or public appearance. Anyone wishing to come forward to speak for public input or public appearance, you're welcome to do so. All I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to come forward to speak for public input or public appearance? Ma'am, I need you to come to the podium, please. And please speak closely to the microphone as possible. There are a fair amount of people watching at home and joining us via WebEx, so they'd like to hear your comments as well.
My name is Lori Betcher. This is my husband, Mark, and our address is North 96 West 20235 County Line Road. We strongly oppose this development in its entirety. The following are the concerns that we have. We have lived directly across County Line Road in Menominee Falls for the last 21 years, right across from where you want to put yet another gas station when we already have 5 gas stations within a mile of my house. Couple that with the multifamily housing units. We will have nothing but vehicle lights shining in our front and bedroom windows all night long, not to mention lights from the proposed gas station and the multifamily housing units. As it stands today, somehow County Line Road has turned into a trekking route within the last 2 years due to the FedEx terminal east on County Line Road, which runs 7 days a week. Pair that with the constant dump truck traffic all day long with all other truck and car traffic. Now you are proposing to bring more traffic and more noise to the area. Not a good idea. My house literally shakes. Isn't that why we have an interstate system? Not only will this proposed gas station bring more vehicles to the area, but the housing unit alone will bring an additional 640 minimum vehicles to the area as well. Also, let us not forget the proposed industrial sites that will bring even more noise and traffic to an area that can barely handle it now. I am sure this development is going to drastically bring down everyone's property values as well. We sure didn't ask for that. Who makes up for that? You? Has anyone done a traffic study on this intersection? I would highly recommend doing so. That in itself should put an end to this development. I am offering anyone on the Plan Commission to bring a lawn chair and join me for about a half hour to sit in my driveway and really observe the reality of the noise and congestion we have to deal with in this present day and every day. We might not be able to hear each other because it's so loud now, but let's make it worse, right? I am telling you, the trucks and cars are traveling 50, 60 miles an hour, 50 feet from my house. With all the traffic, how are we even going to be able to get out of our driveway? Stop the madness. I'm also concerned about all the dust blowing directly at my house from the construction site because I have severe asthma and I'm on 3 different medications daily. The winds are mostly from the north. Who's going to be responsible for washing my house and repairing my heating and air conditioning unit when they break down due to the construction dust they will be sucking in? How can we even sit outside during this proposed construction process? We are also very concerned of the possibility of added crime to the area along with the increase of traffic accidents. There's also been concerns on the gas station's runoff contaminating our neighborhood's wells. Has anybody considered that or at least checked into it? The sad thing about this whole thing is both communities, Germantown and Menominee Falls, did not even notify us that this proposed plan was even occurring. We had to learn it from a surveyor. If nothing is going to be done on Waukesha County's side, can anyone explain why, when they did their survey, they spray painted pink paint on the storm sewer drain that is in my yard in Menominee Falls? There will be no more digging or construction in my yard. Enough is enough. I've already gone through this once when they widened the road. I am not doing it again. We're concerned and very angry. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. I'm sure many of that are in the audience tonight have sent letters already because we received well over 20, 15 from residents outside of Germantown and 7 from residents within Germantown, which I appreciate. When they reach out and give us your opinion and your comments, I do appreciate, and I do read them, and I try to respond to as many as I possibly can. Hopefully I've responded to all, but perhaps I missed a few tonight. If you're here to reread your letter, you're welcome to do that, but please try to keep, since we have a room full, your comments to within 3 to 5 minutes, if you could. That would be greatly appreciated, not only for everyone that's here, but also so everyone can get a chance who wants to come forward can do so as well. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward for public input or public appearance at this time?
Good evening. My name is Melanie Smythe. I live on Cedar Lane, 717938 Cedar Lane, on the north side of Germantown. Am I speaking close enough?
That's perfect.
Okay. All right, great. I'll try and keep it under 3 minutes. Okay, so the mission statement of Germantown is working together to respond to our residents and businesses by providing efficient services that enhance the community's quality of life. The stated vision is Germantown's ethnic heritage, high quality of life based on its rural and suburban character, and desirable location in the greater metropolitan area create our competitive advantage. Our people will work together with respect for each other to ensure that development is consistent with Germantown's future as a neighborly and safe place to live, work, and play. Okay, just want to remind everyone that that's what we are all about. I spent the better part of 6 hours yesterday reacquainting myself with neighbors and making new friends. I was not surprised at how universally everyone agreed that Germantown does a horrible job of communicating with its residents. We've just heard that. It's in the 2020 goals and priorities. Engage with the public, along with stop fighting with the school board. I made the time to do this because someone needed to tell people what's going on here. There's several issues going on right now. One, which we will find out more about, or we will talk more about on Wednesday, is selling water to Richfield, which has an ordinance prohibiting it from extending water across the subcontinental divide, which is Appleton, without a referendum on its ballot. Where is our referendum? We should not be beholden to a developer's schedule. Stop selling off Germantown's assets. Another issue is the 2050 planning is starting up again, and since, per Steve Krecklow, notices are generally sent in utility bills as a method of communication, this, when many people don't get bills due to being unwell and septic, it feels like information is being deliberately withheld. For the planning process to be legitimate, we should at least all receive a summary of what has been done since 2019, 3 years ago, at the very least. Where is that information? Back to water. It's a precious asset which we all need to live. It's not up to only 9 people on the village board to decide on whether Richfield gets our water or not. Richfield has it right. We need a referendum on this matter. One thing I've noticed in the wording of several documents that keep coming out on agendas and as part of information is the repeated notion of collaborating with other villages. This wording looks an awful lot like the mission statement of the Washington County Strategic Plan Mission and Vision. This partly explains to me why there is more emphasis on non-Germantown entities' needs and wants, and not the residents. Continuing with this theme, regarding the Lannon Road and County Y property that's being discussed today, should that parcel really be housing There's a drastic difference between commercial, industrial, office, light industrial, manufacturing, which is what the current land use plan calls for, and residential. Those two are, comparing those are very different types of uses. Changing zoning is a legislative process, and to be lawful, it's supposed to be based on public health, safety, general welfare, and must follow the state statutes. Approving a conditional use is somewhat of a judgment based on individual situations and what laws are on the books that day. For staff comments in the meeting agenda today to say that the Plan Commission is thinking about changing the zoning in the future via the not yet approved 2050 plan is meaningless for this project, since the date of the application means that today's 2020 plan is the one that is law. So this is my understanding. I'm not a lawyer, but any discussion about the 2050 zoning, my understanding, should not come into this discussion. This brings us to the 2050 plan. Germantown's current land use plan is this. And the proposed plan is this. And look how much green has gone away. Green is rural preservation and farming. Since a village's land use plan is so important, why has the village not done a better job of informing residents about the planning process? It feels like they don't want our involvement. Notice the title, Neighborhoods, Districts, and Corridors. There's no mention of individuals, taxpayers, residents, citizens. What this title does is give them free rein to put large swaths of color on a sheet and make each of us disappear. So I have to ask, have you forgotten for whom you work? Perhaps a write-in campaign should be started. We've got an election in a week. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for public input or public appearance? Sir?
Tauschek from the village of Germantown. One of the reasons that I'm up here, first of all, I'd like to thank the woman who was just up here. She did a very nice job, nice homework. And the reason I came up here is because I'm more interested in the transparency of what's all going on in our village, surrounding areas, and I don't see a lot of that from anyone. There's some kind of a public TV, but you never get through on it. It's never running. And one of the other things that I would like to say is, if people remember, I've been here for 33 years in the village of Germantown. Excuse me. And in that time, I've seen people, developers come in, and at one time, the most prevalent one was they wanted to build a dog track. Does everybody remember that? It didn't go. The developers, it didn't go. They decided to move on, and they sold the dog track, I'm sure, to someone else. Here in the same situation, they're trying to sell us something, and if it doesn't float, they'll move on. They had a place, there's a new development over in Grafton, and if you want to look what it's going to look like, go over there. People with beautiful condos, with huge multi-family residents built up in front of their condos. I mean, they don't care. They're going to move on. They don't live here. So this is just one of the points that I get tired of. I don't know, the things that have to be pushed, things that have to be pushed, the ideas, oh boy, we're going to do this. And you get something, what would we be doing today if we had that racetrack here? It would be sitting here empty. A lot of waste because somebody didn't take the time or the effort to see what they had. Another thing I noticed here with this, excuse me, with the 89-acre new business, it calls for 7-acre convenience retail commercial area. Well, if you go out to County Q and you go east of that intersection, you'll see an entire strip mall where Walmart used to be in, different stores, and there's nobody in there anymore. But we're going to take another 7 acres and build something that probably won't go. It'll be sitting there vacant, just like the dog track. So that's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for public input or public appearance? Sir?
Good evening. Mark Van Gompel, N91 W20695 Hillview in Menominee Falls. I'm about 1 mile south, right off of Lannon Road. Like most people here tonight, I'm in against this development. I just have a couple brief points I wanted to touch on real quick and leave it at that. Just a couple concerns. Like the other gentleman mentioned, I'd like the board to just review other developments that they already have for mixed use. So if you look down Highway Q, there's many vacancies there where businesses used to be. And I think that would be a good opportunity for the village to explore changing the zoning and looking at other mixed use, some other places that have already been developed, already have the infrastructure, sewer, water, et cetera, that doesn't need to be developed. The other concern I have here is the plan to use the TID to expand the water and the sewer, like I just mentioned. I don't really think that's fair to the citizens of Germantown that they should have to pay for this. I think that should be on the developers to have to pay for that. I've been a trustee myself for the village of Butler for since 2015 to 2019, so I understand where the village is coming from, looking for other streams of revenue to help support their services, but I think there's other ways to do it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for public input or public appearance? Sir?
Hi, I'm Ron Schneider. I owned a farm directly across Lannon Road to the west. My biggest concern is with this 320 unit complex. What are we going to do with all these kids? We just spent $80 million a couple of years ago building our schools good enough to support our group of people we have living here now. How are we ever going to support another 320 families? Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for public input or public appearance? Yes, ma'am.
Lori Brotsman. I live on Navajo Court in Germantown.
Could you pull the microphone just a little bit closer? Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Now, I haven't had much time to prepare. I read the proposal for Lannon County Line, and frankly, I can't wrap my head around it. If the developer would include a few clowns and an elephant, I think we'd have a complete circus going on down there. Not only will this be horrific for the neighbors' quality of life, but also detrimental to the county line corridor, the residents of Germantown, and Amy Bell School. The only benefit is to the developer. Do we really need another gas station on the north side of county line? We already have 5. How many requests have you received from the community requesting more gas stations on County Line Road? Let's look at the rest of the proposal. Lots of apartments and an industrial park. Sounds great for the developer. Taxpayers pay for the TIF district. The developer collects about $500,000 in rent from the apartments each month, plus whatever leasing fees for the industrial park. How many requests have you received from the community requesting another 300 apartments and an industrial park on County Line and Lannon? What will the impact of this development have on Amy Bell School? How many additional students will this development generate? 200 perhaps? What's the capacity of Amy Bell? I'm not going to choke down another school district referendum to increase the school's capacity. Have you driven down County Line lately? 9 stoplights between Division Road and Aldi's, bumper-to-bumper traffic. In addition to the residents driving on County Line, cars are pouring on County Line from Falls Parkway and the freeway. If the windows are open in my house, the sirens are plentiful. Have any residents suggested that we need another 650 cars and semis driving down County Line Road on a regular basis? The only winner is the developer. Big, tall, multi-story, ugly buildings built from concrete and cheap siding will be constructed along with another gas station, acres of asphalt. The neighborhood will have to endure the problems that will be associated with the development. The taxpayers have to endure the problems it will cause, and everyone gets to chip in for a TIF district. The developer will laugh all the way to the bank. The residents of Germantown want to take pride in their community, and we need you to step up to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward for citizen input or public appearance at this time? I believe we have somebody on WebEx that would like to make a comment. Emily, can you bring that person forward so they can make their comment, please? Is there somebody joining us via WebEx that would like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you. This is Julie Brown. I'm at North 140 W18316 on Cedar Lane in Germantown. I agree with what everyone has said tonight, especially agree with Ms. Smythe that the communication to the people impacted by these decisions has been poor. And I know it's difficult, and I also know it's a responsibility of every citizen to be aware of its government's activities. However, I think you can do better and should make more of a concerted effort on this matter. Residents care a great deal about this. The charm and peace of this community lies within its rural character. We want that preserved as much as possible. And there's no rush. We are not on any developer's schedule. I support our neighbors who've spoken tonight about how this impacts their quality of life. And I ask you to hit the pause button and devote some resources to figuring out a better way of informing more residents about this issue so that they can bring their thoughts to you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for public input or public appearance? As a resident or as a village board member?
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see a good turnout here today. My name is Jan Miller. I'm village trustee in District 4. I am, and my residents in my district are directly affected by this development. And my phone has been ringing every other day with someone coming and asking what's going on. I think part of the communication that was the most effective was that which was put on Nextdoor. And I'm grateful for that opportunity, that social media that we have. So the comments that the citizens here have made are exactly what I heard from other residents within District 4 that live on Lannon Road, right across from the development. It would be noisy. The lights would be going all the time on the gas station. Do we need another gas station? The gas station is built for semis. We don't want that kind of noise. It's going to be too much traffic. It is already a dangerous corner. That's what I've been told. If there hasn't been a traffic study, there absolutely has to be a traffic study. As I looked at the diagram, it showed 2 entrances or exits, whatever you want to call them, off County Line and 2 entrance and exits off of Lannon Road. That's a lot of traffic. So I don't know if all the exits and entrances would have semis, but it's not big enough. If it's traffic, car traffic, it's still going to be busy. As far as the apartments, this real estate development states that it's going to be a high-end apartments. Is that what I read correctly? Yeah, there's a common area, there's a pool, there's little office area, so it's high end. So the developer is coming in and showing us high end apartments, and Washington County is telling us, we don't have enough low income housing. So I see a conflict of interest, perhaps something that we do or we don't need. So I agree with the last caller. We are not finished working on the 2050 plan. I am very much in favor of finishing the 2050 plan. We have a lot of developments going on right now. On the Holy Hill Road is a TID. We are looking at a TID for the DPW. And as another resident pointed out, we have vacant buildings on County Line Road. And before we start building new, we need to refurbish and make what is existing in Germantown look alive. So I understand new shiny things are attractive. I don't know anyone that's looking for a new apartment. I don't know anyone that's looking for a studio. And I would be very interested to understand what the rent is going to be. Is it going to be $500? I don't think so. They probably start at $1,200.
17.
1,700. Okay. So I think that the developers have a good idea. I think you have the wrong location. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for public input or public appearance? I will go with the gentleman first, and then we can go to you next.
Robert Litzow, West 213, North 10549, Oak Lane, Germantown. I hope, first of all, that the board doesn't discount any of these people from Menominee Falls, because they're actually going to be probably the most impacted people there. And I'm still looking for the first high-end development that has less than one garage space per unit. That doesn't tell me this is high-end at all. This is row housing in Germantown in the wrong place, in the wrong community. This isn't where this belongs, not in this community at all. You want to put high-end in there, then put true high-end in there and protect the people on both sides of that road that have been there for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Michelle Long. I live at W202 and 9503 Club Circle Drive. I'm Menominee Falls. I'm 5 houses down from where this proposed development is going to be built. My question is, has a study been done on police force to maintain this, as well as the fire department? Right now, the way it is, we hear sirens all night long, 1, 2 in the morning. The traffic is horrendous. When the lady mentioned that the trucks make her house shake, I'm 5 houses away from her, and mine shakes too. We're not in support of this at all, my husband and I. Want to know how it affects our wells and where the planned water is going to come from. Are you going to build a water tower, or is it going to be sourced from Germantown somewhere? Because this is going to hurt our wells as well. If you put a gas station, there's going to be runoff. It's going to contaminate every one of our wells. Who's going to be there to fix that? I'm going to be retiring in 2 years. I can't afford to move. That's all I have to say. Totally opposed.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward for public input or public appearance? Before we close this section of the agenda, a couple of the comments that have been made is in regards to communication. This is the first time this has been on the agenda for Plan Commission. This is the first meeting, and if you look at the agenda, it's for discussion. There's no action being taken. It's merely being proposed as a possibility of use for this land. It's not set in stone. It's a proposed plan that this body is considering for land use in this area. So you are at the first meeting that this has been brought forward. So as part of the communication and the outpouring of information of getting you here, it seems to be working. You're here. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you for communicating with each other, and thank you for coming here and spending time with us to tell us your thoughts and your comments about this proposal. But you're on the ground floor. There's been no discussions previous to this for this proposal. The developer's coming forward and pitching, this is what we think would be, based on land use and zoning in this area, a possible use for this area. What do you think, Plan Commission? And that's when we start to give our comments. We give our input based on your input as well, which we appreciate and want, and it starts from there. Then it goes to, if it progresses, to a various of other meetings, which are all noticed. And if it comes to a public hearing, then there are notices that are mailed out to those that are within a certain distance around this development. And that would be for any zoning changes or different land uses or changes to the land use plan. So tonight, it's a mere discussion. It's a presentation of what is possible here or possible land use, but it is not by any means down the line of happening. It's a discussion. But again, thank you for your input. Thank you for caring enough to come here. I really, truly appreciate that. Many people think that I don't want a room full. I wish I could get a room full for every meeting, especially at budget time. You should join us at budget time. We have lots of fun. But I do appreciate you spending time with us tonight. Anyone else? One last time for, ma'am? You're going to have to come forward because I will get a complaint and phone call from somebody that won't be able to hear you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I did send in a letter to the comments
Mm-hmm.
and have not received an email. So I don't know if I should read mine. If you got it, I know others sent theirs in.
Sure. I tried to direct it to everybody I could between those that were coming in this afternoon and between this meeting. If you'd like to read yours and you have a copy with you, you may do so. I just don't want to open it up to everybody's letter because, as I said, we got over 20 some and 15 that I have here as copies are from outside of Germantown and 7 are within.
What's your name? Tamara Schneider. And I live at West 204 North 9699 Lannon Road. Really, I appreciate everyone who has come in and
Sure.
talked about their concerns.
Yeah.
Covered pretty much everything in my letter. The only other thing I really have to say is that it is currently zoned as agricultural. And with the 2050 plan, even there, they're saying it could be industrial, but it lists any sort of residential as undesirable. There are, if anything, I would believe we should keep it with a space, an open space or recreation, like one that is listed, because there are beautiful native plants in the area that are going to get wiped out by this whole development plan. So I want to just thank everyone for showing up here. And I agree, we are not as informed as we should be. If you don't go to your website, which is not very easy to navigate, you wouldn't know about these things. So thanks.
Thank you. And we do have a copy of your letter within our group here. Okay. That then takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of minutes from the March, I'm sorry. Okay. Who's that? Okay.
evening. My name is Darcel Eli, North 96, West 19866, County Line Road, Germantown. I'm going to be living on that island. If they build all around me, I'm going to be on an island, which has been reported to me through my realtor and all kinds of other stuff. They're telling me that if I ever do try to sell, my value is going to go down in my house. That it's just going to be, the only way I heard about all of this was when my husband was approached by somebody to make an offer on our house. I wasn't involved in it. It was my husband and the gentleman. And then finally I said, let me talk to somebody. So I talked to somebody and explained to them what was going on and, you know, how they were going to offer me money for my house and I could go look for a house and find a house, you know, and they'll give me 9 months to move out and, you know, all this. Really, I looked at a house last Saturday or a couple Saturdays ago on Plainview. It was sold that afternoon. I just retired. I'm not going to be able, I don't have money in the bank to take what they're going to offer me to move out. So I'm stuck. No matter what happens, I'm stuck. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I also got called last week by the electric company. They're coming through. They're offering me money to take easement because the power plant needs a new feeder line, I think, what's it called? A new feeder line because we don't have enough coming off of that power plant right now. What are we going to do when we need more of that? They're not aware of that. They have no idea that this is proposed. And like you guys say, it's a proposal, it's a thought, but they know nothing. Last year, the cable company came through, tore our yards up, put big holes in it. And then all of a sudden they decided to put rock in there because it was cold and then we had to wait and, you know, to get the yard fixed. So now I got the cable going through, that's done. Now I'm going to have the electric company going through. Now that's done, or going to be done. And they want to do that like this spring. And then all of a sudden now we're going to have all of this. So I just wanted to share that. Sorry. And thank you everybody for all your comments.
What was your address again?
North 96, West 19866, County Line Road. And so here's my house here, and Wellington is like right here. They want to put a road down here, right? Because they're going to put a sewer thing here by me, whatever it's called, and then a road here to get into the industrial park. Are they going to kitty corner and make U-bangers to go through? Are they going to have to come out and go west and then go east? You know, we already got, traffic is crazy there. So they want me out so that they can pull Wellington straight across. And then that would make it easier to come in and out of that industrial park. Well, they can't put me, they have to put it over here somewhere. So, I don't know, but thank you for letting me talk.
Sure. Thank you for coming forward. There's one additional person who wants to speak again that has joined us via WebEx. Is it Mr. Braun? Mr.
Yep.
Braun?
I'm Jeff Brown, N140W18316 Cedar Lane. We've lived here for, I believe, 18 years, and I appreciate your role, and I appreciate that we're on the ground floor. Short of a neighbor coming and stopping at our house, we wouldn't know exactly what's going on, and I'll be honest, it seems like there's a lot going on in our area that we don't know about. And during COVID and everything else, it's hard to get a hold of people. But I know that the village has no problem finding me when my taxes are due. So I'm suggesting that some of this stuff starts coming to us via mail. We don't have utility bills like was suggested in other meetings that we listened to this weekend. I know you guys are trying, but we got to figure out a way to get to the people that don't have utility bills, because this is important stuff going on in our community. And I, as well as a lot of other people in this room, feel like we don't know what's going on.
Okay, thank you for coming forward. Got anything else?
I would also add that I know that you think this is a big turnout. For what's going on, in my opinion, this is actually a small turnout. And when we get to the 2050 comprehensive plan, we should have hundreds of people there.
Yes, I agree.
20 or 30. So hopefully,
I agree.
hopefully we can find a way to engage the people so that you can help deliver the results that the community is looking for. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Carla Schubert. I live at W204 and 9886 Lannon Road. My house is right next to the industrial building that they want to put up. You can see it, probably touch it from my house, out of the window of my bedroom, my living room, and my dining room. And I was told tonight, number one, that my property value would not go down. Does anybody in this room agree with me that if they looked at my property and saw where that building was, that they would want to buy it and live there? No. My husband and I are retired. We bought this property 25 years ago with the thought that this would be our retirement. What are we going to get for it now? Nothing. It's a travesty what's happening here. I asked about the sewer and water. Are we going to be made to hook up to that once all this is put in? And who's going to pay for that? I was told that we would have the option of whether we wanted to do that or not. I'm told that, but is that the truth? I don't know. I'm glad that everybody's here, and I think that what is going on is heartbreaking. My husband and I bought this land. We lived in the city of Port Washington. We wanted a piece of heaven, and this is what it was, and it's turning into a piece of hell.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else? Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Daniel Schwartz. I live on North 96 West 20447 County Line Road. I'm on the Menominee Falls side. The only reason why I'm here is because I found out from Nextdoor app that there is going to be a gas station along with apartments built kitty corner from my house. I'm very concerned about it because that is an extremely dangerous intersection. It's loud. There's dump trucks constantly going through there. And I think with more people living in these apartments, it's only going to get worse. And I honestly don't know how semis would be able to get to that location without either going down Q, going past 3 other gas stations, or going through the roundabout after the freeway off of Lannon Road, which isn't safe either. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else before we go on to the next item on the agenda? Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the March 14th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. Commissioners,
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is new business, starting with new business item A. Fiduciary Real Estate Development, Inc. and the Dickman Company, Inc., agents for the Central Land Company 3 LLC, and Carrie Doyne, Christy Leswig et al., property owners of 89 acres located on the northeast quadrant of the Lannon Road, County Y, County Line Road, County Q intersection, a consultation for an 89-acre mixed-use development comprised of a 27-acre and 320-unit multifamily residential community called the Seasons of Germantown, a 55-acre and 574,000 square foot industrial park, up to 4 industrial buildings, and a 7-acre convenience retail commercial area. Up for discussion. Before we get into this and have our presentations, I'd like to turn the meeting over at this time to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzloff, to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our first of 2 discussion items on tonight's special Plan Commission meeting agenda. The first concerning an 89-acre mixed-use development proposal located at the Lannon at County Line Road intersection, also known as County Highway Y and County Highway Q. The 89-acre area is highlighted in red on the screen. The current zoning is A1 agricultural. The current 2020 land use plan map classification for the area, which is circled in orange there, is both commercial and industrial/office. The commercial area is shown along County Line Road, and as you'll notice, pretty much the whole triangular area formed by Appleton, Lannon, and County Line is included within commercial classified areas along the thoroughfares, along the highways, with an industrial area, the purple in the middle. These classifications have been part of the 2020 land use plan since it was adopted in 2004. And as we discussed earlier this year as part of our 2050 plan update, the need to revisit these classifications, particularly with regard to this area in light of the current state of retail and retail development, and quite frankly, how much we show on our current 2020 plan as potential future commercial. I think we all agreed earlier this year that the amount of commercial shown is significant and probably needs to be reevaluated, and we are reevaluating that now. As part of our discussion last year, we started discussing the notion of possibly changing the commercial and industrial classifications to include some component of residential to serve as a buffer along County Line Road. And as a result of those preliminary discussions, we have a developer who has come forward and offered a concept plan for potential development, a viable development that includes, as the president pointed out, three components. The multifamily residential area, 320 units, an industrial park area surrounding and to the north, and a 7-acre area that is right now is shown as a future potential convenience commercial retail area right at the intersection. As part of our reevaluation and continuing with that process, we need to hear what the developer has to say, factor that into some of our earlier conversations, ask questions, and move forward with reevaluating our land use classifications for this particular area as they will eventually be shown on the 2050 plan. So with that, I'd like to introduce Tony DeRosa, representing Fiduciary Real Estate. Tony will be addressing the multifamily residential component, and Dominic Ferrante, representing the Dickman Company, who will be talking and introducing to you the industrial component of this particular proposal.
Good evening. My name is Tony DeRosa with Fiduciary Real Estate Development, and thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. We're here tonight to present our preliminary concept plan for the land at the northeast corner of County Line and Landon Road. This development is being put together in partnership between Fiduciary Real Estate and the Dickman Company. Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the overall site, the master site plan, and then I'll go into greater detail regarding the multifamily component of the development before turning it over to the Dickman Company to go in further detail regarding the industrial component. As Jeff had shown on the previous slide, this slide shows the site outlined in white. In total, the site is approximately 89 acres located at the northeast corner of County Line and Landon Roads. This is the overall master site plan, the entire 89 acres. What we've done here is we've created a mixed use development with a mix of multifamily, convenience type retail, as well as industrial uses. For a site that was originally planned to include retail and industrial, we've come up with a plan that responds to today's market and today's economy. The site has approximately 7 acres on the corner for convenience type retail. That's wrapped with approximately 27 acres for multifamily behind it, and then transitions to industrial behind it. The combination of housing and the industrial job base will help support the retail corridor that we've already touched on earlier this evening, and to help fill vacant storefronts. While we still need to conduct a full traffic study, we've done some preliminary homework with our traffic consultant to come up with some conceptual access points that have some merit. We recognize that moving forward, we need to conduct a full traffic study and work with not only the village, but also the DOT as we finalize access points here. As you can see on the site plan along County Highway Q, there are 2 residential properties that were not included in the plan. My partner Ryan Schultz had met a couple times with each of those property owners. We had presented offers to them for a variety of reasons: price, the ability to find replacement property. Both of those property owners were not interested in selling at this time. So now I'd like to go into a little bit more detail about who is Fiduciary Real Estate Development. We're based in Milwaukee. We're a local company. We specialize in market rate luxury housing, mixed use development, as well as commercial and retail. We've been around for over 35 years. We've grown our business into becoming one of Wisconsin's largest real estate companies. Since our inception back in 1984, we've owned and developed upwards of 11,000 apartment units in our history. Our company has a true vested interest in all of our projects, as we typically invest at least 25% of our own money into the overall project equity. In terms of our team that we've put together for this project, my partner Ryan Schultz is here this evening, also Dave Farrell and Ashley Poole. Our design partner is AG Architecture out of Wauwatosa, and our civil engineering group is the Sigma Group out of Milwaukee. Now, to give you a little feel for the quality of the type of work that Fiduciary has done, I'd like to share 3 different projects with you to give you an overview of our history. This is one of our recent projects we completed in the village of Wauwatosa along State Street called State Street Station. This was 148 apartments that we built along with 20,000 feet of retail in the heart of the village of Wauwatosa. This was a challenging project. It was environmentally contaminated. It had infrastructure challenges, and we partnered with the city of Wauwatosa in making this project a reality. Arabelle is located in Cedarburg. This was 69 apartments on a 4-acre site on the south end of the downtown area of Cedarburg. This was a challenging project with significant demolition of an old abandoned school property. It was a blighted site, and we partnered with the city of Cedarburg on making this project a reality, and it's been 100% full since the day it opened 2 years ago. One of the things that we're known for when we come into a new community and we develop is we're known for coming in with best-in-class level of service, amenities, as well as finishes. This was our project Arabelle up in Cedarburg, giving an indication of the quality of what the insides of our buildings look like. Lastly, the Seasons at Orchard Hills in Oak Creek was 225 apartments that we built 2 years ago. This is townhouse style. This is the type of development that we're modeling the Seasons at Germantown after. Our Seasons line that we've been developing is known in each community that we develop in for being an upscale, luxury, suburban housing option for people of the community. This is the clubhouse and outdoor area that will be very similar to what we're proposing here this evening. Interior of the clubhouse. And exterior materials shown on the image on the left. We don't use vinyl sidings on our buildings. These are high quality. We use cement board, hardy type materials, a combination of brick, interior finishes that would be similar to what you'd find in a single family home. So in terms of the subject property itself, the multifamily component makes up roughly 27 acres. That's the area outlined in red within the white outline. As Jeff had mentioned, it's currently zoned A1. This site is earmarked for commercial as well as industrial and office type uses. The 320 apartments that we've proposed equates to a density of approximately 11.94 apartments per acre. In terms of multifamily overview, the area, including Germantown specifically, has seen limited multifamily development over the past decade. There's significant pent-up demand for something that's modern, that's market rate throughout the community. This type of use is compatible with existing as well as what are the proposed future land uses in the area. To be successful, there's key criteria that are critical in developing multifamily. Those include proximity to jobs, retail conveniences, being close proximity to healthcare providers, interstate access, as well as having a high quality modern type construction. Then you look at the demand side of the equation. Is there demand for what we're proposing to build here? Our market research shows that there is significant pent-up demand in the community. There's a lot of people that are looking to sell their homes but want to stay in the areas. Some people have family ties here. Some people spend winters down south but want to come back to see family. The community has a relatively older rental housing stock with dated finishes and a lack of amenities. In terms of our target demographics, the target demographic here is a group that's looking for something that's upscale, a community to call home. These are empty nesters, baby boomers, young professionals, those choosing to rent. When you look at what does our typical resident profile look like, these are people that work in finance, healthcare, insurance, real estate, technology, police and fire, management, education, and a variety of other service type industries. Monthly rent ranges are estimated on the low end of roughly $1,400 per month, upwards of $2,500 a month, over a mix of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. This will be a unique community. This is a development that's not going to cater to those that are looking to live in your typical 3- and 4-story development with elevators, but rather a smaller scale building that has more of a condo or townhome type feel. Each apartment would have its own private direct entrance. There'd be no common corridor in any of these buildings. This would be the most highly amenitized development in Germantown. Some of the highlights of the proposed development include some of the following. As mentioned earlier, these would all be 2-story townhouse style buildings, each with their own direct entrance. This is slab on grade type construction. It's maintenance free living for those that live here. In terms of within the apartments themselves, we have attached as well as detached garage options. We have oversized windows, private balconies, open concept floor plans, quartz countertops, Kohler plumbing fixtures, upgraded stainless steel appliance packages, in line with what you'd expect to see if you walked into a brand new single family home. In terms of our overall community amenities, they include a resort style clubhouse and pool, a first class fitness center, as well as walkability throughout our development. We will be managing the property with on-site property management staff. Fiduciary will be the property manager of record. Fiduciary as a management company is recognized as being best in class for our management teams. We have a very hands-on approach. What we're doing here is we're selling a lifestyle for people that are choosing to live here. We run our properties like high-end hotels where people that live here want and expect the best in class in terms of finishes and a maintenance-free living experience. Here's a zoomed-in version of the multifamily site plan. The multifamily is completely self-contained with its own access points to both county line and land and roads. There are 320 total apartments within the development over the 27 acres, spread out over 16 2-story buildings with 20 apartments per building, along with a clubhouse and pool at the entrance. Now I'm going to share a few still perspectives with you to give you a feel for how the development lays out. Afterwards, then we'll play an animated fly-through to give you a different perspective on the development. This is our clubhouse located off of County Line at the main entrance. Here's an image of our clubhouse and pool, as well as one of the buildings behind it. Again, I'd like to point out when we talk about quality of materials and the quality of the type of construction, these are not concrete buildings, these are not block buildings, these are of architectural interest, lots of gables, big balconies, big patios, combination of brick, as well as high quality siding. This is the area outside of our clubhouse where we have outdoor TV and fire pits for our residents to utilize. This is the interior of our clubhouse. Within the clubhouse itself, we also have an entertaining or chef-style kitchen that people can rent out, whether they have birthday parties or graduation parties. Clubhouse even has its own dedicated movie room for people to utilize. I talked previously about the level of finish within the apartments themselves. This gives you a good feel of exactly what they're going to look like in terms of the appliance package, the level of finish of plumbing fixtures, appliances, bathrooms, open concept floor plans, etc. Now I'm going to play a fly through of the site. So with a lot of discussion about the mixed use components here and the different types of uses from, convenience retail to housing to industrial, thought we'd talk about a case study that we just completed. This is for a development we did in Illinois, a suburb of Illinois of about 30,000 people, where we built the last phase of the overall development, where we had multifamily. You can kind of see it wedged in the middle there. You've got convenience retail on the left side of the screen outlined in red. And then we had about 700,000 feet of industrial space that was built behind the multifamily. And what we found was actually these three uses actually worked and played very well together. They provide nice transitional buffers. The housing and the job base are very complementary between industrial providing jobs for the area and the housing providing employment source for those jobs. And then the rooftops supporting the retail in the local area. This has actually been one of our most successful projects that we've done in recent years. And we think these three types of uses at the end of the day were very complementary and a direct result as a result of that. Romeoville. Yes. In summary, the multifamily component is going to be a one-of-a-kind type development, something that does not exist in your community. There is significant pent-up market demand for this type of development. Germantown is a relatively underserved market. In terms of increment and assessed value, just the multifamily component alone would have over a $50 million increment in the assessed value, resulting in over $700,000 increment in the annual property taxes. Then you look at the impact of additional people spending additional dollars, discretionary dollars within the local area. We think that impact is over $3.5 million annually for the retail along the corridor. And at the end of the day, as a mixed-use development, we think the multifamily plays a key role in bringing all three pieces together. Now I'd like to introduce Dom Ferrante from the Bryan Building Corporation to talk about the industrial component of the project.
Good evening. My name is Don Ferrante. As Tony mentioned, I'm with Brian and representing the Dickmans. Tony did a great job in giving an overview of everything. And I'll just kind of touch base on what the industrial component will be. The building that you see up there is kind of an example of potential buildings on that development. And we have buildings similar to this that we have completed in the Goldendale industrial park currently. This is just a overview of where the site is, which you've already seen. Some other perspective views of what the buildings could look like on the industrial portion of the development. And from the site plan that you see, we presented 4 buildings, and they're a mix of sizes based on what we have found to work well within the Germantown area and what the industrial market is looking for. On the northwest corner, we have a larger building, a little over 200,000 square feet with the appropriate parking for that. And we have 3 other buildings, 2 of which are 105,000 square feet each. And another building that's 130,000 square foot, which is on the eastern portion, midway up. So in general, we worked with the city and fiduciary, the village and the fiduciary to kind of develop a plan that would use the residential as kind of a buffer and transition between the industrial and other residential area around the neighborhood. These are just examples of the elevations of what the industrial buildings would look like. This would be the larger building. And these are examples of the 2 smaller type of buildings. So in general, this is what we're looking at, and back to the site plan. And there is the potential for continuing to the north as part of the master plan. That we give to the Plan Commission for any questions or discussion.
Commissioners? Trustee Baum? Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Retzloff.
No, that's okay. Joe, could you come up? I've got a couple questions for the fiduciary component, the multifamily. I know in your presentation you talked about the target market and the type of individuals that would be leasing in there. Given some of the comments that we heard earlier, do you have a sense of, and particularly in light of other projects like this that you've developed and are successful, do you have a sense of the projected number of families with school-age children or school kids that typically come from? Is that like 1 per unit or half per unit or?
Sure. Very, very good question. So when you compare multifamily land use to single family, we're obviously a lot less school age intensive compared to single family, number one. Number two, when we look back at who lives in our properties that we've developed in the last, say 5 to 10 years in suburban type settings like this, we're typically seeing on average about 10 to 12 school age kids per 100 apartments. So when you have 320 apartments, you're looking at 35 to 40 plus or minus school age kids. Some of those are already within the district. Some would be new to the district.
My second question, your Romeoville project, you described as being very successful given the symbiotic relationship with the commercial and the industrial and the multifamily. In this case, is the success of the multifamily dependent on the 7-acre retail being developed in this project, or could it function without that?
They're not tied together. The multifamily does not depend on the retail in order to be successful.
Right. That's all I've got at this moment. Thank you.
Trustee Baum?
Director Retzloff, can you pull up the overall plan of the area? The triangular Appleton Avenue, the bigger picture. So for the residents that are here today,
Does that help?
yeah, that's what I'm looking for. there's a lot of land in our village that is owned by farmers and general people out there who bought it for an investment. At some point, they're going to want to sell it to retire on what they make from it. The question is not, can they sell it? Should they sell it? We can't make them hold it. They're going to talk to developers and they're going to come to a deal and they're going to want to sell it. What is the appropriate development for this area is really the question that we are looking at. On County Line Road, the triangular area, the very peak of it at County Line and Appleton Avenue is a commercial district. A lot of retail. That retail extends westbound, and we all know that that retail is dead right now. Okay? What is off the screen to the left, past the subject property, is large tract, single-family housing. A little bit farther are subdivisions. So the question becomes, how do I transition between retail district of Appleton and County Line and the rural, somewhat subdivision residential west of Lannon Road? What is the appropriate use for this property? That is the real question. Not should it be developed? We don't want it to be developed. Development is going to be brought forward, and we have to figure out what is acceptable to us. So we have an industrial park on Appleton Avenue just north of this development, feasibly thinking that that industrial park would span across Appleton Avenue and take on the north end of this vacant land. Would that industrial continue south, that golden area just above the subject property? Feasible that that would become industrial as well, an expansion of Appleton Avenue. What happens in the white and red area? How do I transition from industrial, a power plant, to farmland, through farmland that's going to be sold to rural residential areas? What's the right transition piece there? Somebody said a park. We want to put a park there. The village is not buying parkland. We do not do that. Our 2020 plan has all of that slated as more retail, which is not going to go anywhere, and more industrial. The applicant has come forward with, we want to facilitate the industrial portion of what your plan has. We have some heartburn about that. It's not a good transition to the residential that is directly adjacent to it. How do we properly do that? So we have people in the audience that have worked with transitioning from one density to another. We are in the process of talking to various people about various ways to do this. This is our first discussion in front of a public audience as to what is the right transition piece. From my perspective, when I see a large-scale industrial building, the building right under the word master, right up next to a residential building, I have a problem with that. Would I accept some type of transitional housing coming along Lannon Road and having housing along Lannon Road, having housing along Highway Q, and putting the industrial farther back behind with a generous buffer between the two of them? That would be more accommodating to me. I am only one person on this board. I am only one person on the Plan Commission, but I have voiced this at previous smaller meetings, that this is a better way to do things. I would look to see something adapted a little bit more towards that. To say that this is luxury housing, I struggle with luxury housing next to an industrial building. You showed me the place in Illinois that was luxury housing next to industrial. I question it, but that's only my opinion. I question whether that would work or not. So while I am not going to stand up here and say, no, absolutely not, this is no way acceptable, I would say, come back with another plan and let's talk about it further and see what we can do to make a transition from commercial, industrial into single-family rural housing. So that's my take on the first part.
David, knowing that that transition can't be started and ended just within this particular development and this property, because we do have land to the west of Lannon that, we've discussed, the current plan, other than the environmental corridor through there immediately west of Lannon, we show everything else is commercial.
Right.
And we've already concluded, at least in our preliminary discussions, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So if that's going to be a higher density single family that potentially could be served by sewer and water, then this property is part of that transition, with single family being probably the likely use most immediately west of Lannon. Getting back to their concept plan, what would you suggest on this industrial building number 1 in the northwest corner? Converting all of that to residential?
You see the future buildings outlined ghosted in at the top. If I were to get rid of that industrial number 1 building and potentially copy a future development building over at the back end of this residential, put in a buffer zone and bring this residential up along Lannon Road so that the single family house is next to some level of residential, I'd feel more comfortable with that. That would then push the commercial development or the industrial development back into the site, and we can put in some buffers between. I think in some zoning districts we have 250 foot of buffer between industrial and residential. I don't remember the distances, but if we have a nice buffer between there that I can't see it through the trees, the trees start to mask the sound, it starts to become a little bit more acceptable. But I need to see that in a plan before I can really agree to it.
So you're looking to buffer both Lannon and County Line within some sort of residential and push the industrial to the back.
Correct.
So that there's a transition of what already exists there, but also, as we've discussed in the 2050 plan, west on Lannon, that's been looked at as possible of higher density residential single family.
Yes, because
this currently is in the sewer district and part of the sewer district, and we know that eventually it would expand, and there's no time frame for it, but within 10 to 20 years, the sewer district would expand up County Line towards White Horse Lane and Amy Bell up along that's just a natural path for it to follow along County Line. But there's a lot of land in between where it is right now and where it would go that needs to be looked at as to what possible development. Single family has been always looked at as west on land, and we've always struggled with how to transition that, knowing that commercial stops where it stops. You can't get it any further west because it can't be supported with enough of business or enough activity. But what this tends to do is it helps to possibly revitalize that with rooftops and additional personnel to revitalize that dead commercial that's to the east a little bit further.
Right, and we've talked about that, the need for more rooftops to regenerate the demand for that retail area that's dying or dead. And this certainly would be a quick shot in the arm as far as the number of rooftops and disposable income available to do just that. You know, we're talking about single family to the west of Lannon, but you know, for us, that's in the, if it's not sewered, it's generally 1 acre. Or if it's sewered, it's, you know, 18,000, 20,000 square foot lots, basically 2 units per acre. So within a 27 acre site for this multifamily, we're looking at 320 rooftops, the equivalent of, versus what we would get, 54 single family homes.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense from that perspective.
But David's trying to keep the industrial away from, let's call it the legacy residents, and put a buffer there to give it more of what their purpose of why they moved out there, rather than having an industrial building put in your backyard.
Right. And I think in the preliminary looks that I looked at this, isn't a lot of along that vertical black line between the residential and what is proposed industrial. Isn't there a lot of tree line already in there?
See the overview? Yeah.
You would really have to go off the screen up above where it says location, but I see the trees starting there, and I recall there is a lot of trees in there, and the residentials are more in front of the trees, and there's a dense tree line. That helps make the buffer.
Right. We also talked about taking out of the industrial classification those deep, narrow parcels on the east side of Lannon that are shown here as purple, and putting those in a residential district, essentially the same as what's on the west side of Lannon Road.
Right.
So we're already doing that by reclassifying those properties, one of which I think the owner is here this evening that talked about their home being adjacent to the proposed industrial building number 1.
Yes.
When you look at this, though, keep in mind, you know, again, just to the west of industrial building number 1, there's the stormwater management, and then that area, that empty space up above there is that small environmental area that's completely wooded. You know, that was intended to serve as a buffer too, along Lannon Road. But you're saying you want something more significant along the north side, or you want to take that entire industrial building number 1 and move it somewhere else?
I have a real problem with an industrial building right next to that single family home. It's the big horizontal industrial number 1. If you look at industrial number 1, the horizontal big pink building there. Yeah, you see the green roof of that next to the M. That's a single family home. I have a problem with that building being there.
Concept there.
Bring your mic a little closer, Bill.
Okay. At first, I thought you meant the 3 buildings there. What's that? 2, 3, and 4, moving north and spreading the apartments complex more to the east. The other part of it I don't understand is what does the convenience store play in all this? I just don't understand why it's even there.
Well, I think that's coming from the village staff. I mean, part of the direction was we want to try and reevaluate the amount of commercial we've classified, but not eliminate it altogether. So one of the things we suggested was, you know, is it possible to keep a small component of neighborhood commercial near the intersection? And the developers trying to accommodate that. But, you know, quite
Well, yeah,
frankly,
but-
if the desire is that it not be there, or there's not a demand for it, and it's not necessary for the success of the multifamily component, then it certainly sounds like it's expendable.
I didn't see it fitting into the description I saw of the apartment complex. It just didn't seem to be in the same place. And it won't be a small convenience market if it's Quick Trip. I'm not sure that's the right client, but if it is, They're usually pretty involved. I mean, they really have a nice installation when they put it in.
Well,
So it's gonna be
and we
already-
discussed that and the notion that we would put some limitations on exactly how intensive and expansive it could be with regard to serving trucks. I think there was a comment tonight that it would be designed to serve trucks and trailers, and that's the complete opposite of what the intention is. It's not intended to be a truck fueling location for the convenience of the industrial park as it much is as a neighborhood commercial for the area.
Okay, we'll go back then a second. Go back, David, again to where did you fit the industrial buildings then? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where did you actually put the industrial buildings? Where were you going to put building number one in your mind?
So if I eliminate building number one and take one of the ghosted out future development buildings underneath the N in plan
Okay,
and copy it over to the east end of the industrial building, so it's in the green space of that residential
okay,
above.
so he gets it away from being right across from the residential.
They're not next door to it. It's behind them. They got some tree buffer. We'll have this developer put in more trees.
Okay, so you're essentially saying cut it in half and rotate it 90 degrees.
Thereabouts, sure.
So it'd still be on the same parcel, just the eastern half of it, roughly?
Sure, can say that. Yeah, it's really from the S in master to the E in site. You fit another one of these future buildings in that swath, then it's in the, what I call the tree line, because this resident has a donut of trees around a green space.
Mr. Leszewski.
Two things. One is we keep mentioning industrial for those buildings. Would appropriate use also be warehouse and distribution versus industrial? Because I think that raises some hackles based on the industrial use. Is it going to be a foundry, a stamping plant? I assume it'd be a lighter use than that.
Well, we don't really have a heavy industrial zoning district. We do, but it's used more for extractive and mining type sites. Everything that's industrial, for the most part in the village, is the M1 limited industrial,
right.
which has evolved into, in most locations these days, to be more of a distribution, light
Assembly. Right.
assembly.
So that's kind of the use. The other thing, I echo Bill on that, is when I look at, again, blending elements together, the C-store piece, and I'm sure there's a highest and best use for that parcel, but I'm not sure that's it, because it's like you can push around the industrial buildings, the multifamily, and you hit that C-store, and it's like, I just picture a lot of light, a lot of traffic, a lot of activity. It's really not congruent with what you've got behind it, which surrounds it, which is the high-end multifamily.
You didn't fly through the gas station when you did your fly through.
I would ask you to think about driving through a highly trafficked intersection and what is on the corner of the intersections. CVS, Walgreens, gas stations. What's that? Banks.
Some banks.
Is
Professional
that,
building.
are those type of uses what would really go on these four corners? You're not going to go on the southeast corner because that's all residential, isn't it? It's all
Yes.
Falls people. But what's going on the northwest corner? That is a site that somebody's going to come forward and want to develop. What we call out as red, back one picture, what we call out as red west of Landon Road, that's going to come forward for development. Somebody's going to buy, what's that? The green spot is wetlands. The red spot should be outside of the environmental corridor. So we're only, yeah. So what would go there? Is that another multifamily? Is that a dense subdivision? Is that these half-acre, quarter-acre homes that I see going up everywhere? What goes there? It's a planning process, and what is right, what is wrong, that is the discussion that is before us.
You went over 3 minutes. A couple questions. And looking at the, the rooftops that you're proposing here and how it's laid out. And David has made some suggestions in regards to the buildings and shifting them so that they're more in the background and not so prominent to some of the residentials that are in that area or across the street. I spend a fair amount of time up outside of Madison, Verona, Fitchburg, Middleton. They're building a fair amount of these types of developments where they have your apartments that you show for the young professionals that want to be in that area. They also have a component usually of a couple blocks of what I would call a small single family. Very small lots of usually within an HOA. And all maintenance is taken care of within any type of green space that these particular homes are on. Is that any type of a consideration for this area in buffering one against the other and in giving it the appearance of a single family residential still, but still getting that apartment behind for rooftops and then still getting behind that the industrial? Are those types of developments, I think fiduciary is involved in as well, correct?
Yeah, actually, we're actively working in Madison, in Verona. Some of the differences there, in those communities, and I'll address your specific question, they actually are pushing for more dense, bigger, they want 3-story, they want 4-story, they want underground parking, and they want you to go up, with height, whereas this is, more spread out, lower type density. In terms of a demographic, you mentioned about the demographic in Madison, young professionals, what you're seeing here. Our buildings, because we have a variety of different sizes of apartments, our demographic is actually very broad. We see people from, we like to say, from age 22 and all the way to 82 and everything in between. So we're not building here for 100% millennial target demographic. It's actually very broad. In terms of, would we put in a small, I think I understand the concept that you're talking about, an own product of some sort. I think it depends on what happens with industrial, what happens on the corner, what's left, how do the parts and pieces come together? Is there a small component? Maybe, but, I'd like to hear the rest of the comments before understanding all the parts and pieces, how they fit together.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. Commissioners, Mr. Williams.
So I've got 2 questions. First is zoning question. When I go through the multifamily residential zoning, I get to RM3, which is 10 units per acre. This is proposed at 11.94 units per acre. So what zoning would we actually fit this into from our perspective?
This would require a planned development district.
Okay. All right. And then second question I had is near industrial building number 4 in the corner. Is that a single individual family like residential home as well?
Yes.
One on Highway 2.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 there along county line showing for what you see on the plan here. Anything else, Mr. Williams? Further questions, comments? Mr. Nils?
Could you just confirm where the sewer service area extends to? Is it to Lannon Road?
Right now it ends on Highway Q, just in the far southeast corner of the property. Just to the west, just to the east of the corner of the property.
Sewer service area or the existing?
The existing laterals there.
Yeah.
The sewer service area itself extends just to Lannon Road, and then includes going north. I think there's a small portion of the area where industrial building number 1 is located that is outside. That solid dark line represents what was the sewer service area.
Yeah, okay.
Back in when the plan was adopted. The dash line represents the future 2020 sewer service area. It has been extended to that dash line to the north but not completely, in this case, to the west. So there's some sewer service area adjustment that would be required.
Okay, thank you.
So if you would go back to that zoning. So if you were to want to develop the red patch west of Landon Road as a residential subdivision less than 1 acre, that would need to be on water and sewer.
Correct.
So therefore, if we were to extend water and sewer to Lannon and County Q, it could be extended to pick that up and make that a single family residential development. Otherwise, it would have to stay more rural and larger acreage.
Mr. Retzloff.
Joe, let me throw this out there, and I don't need you to respond right now, but if you want to, you're certainly welcome to. Given the discussion with regard to industrial building number 1 and the convenience store, if the convenience store parcel was eliminated and that was available for the multifamily units, is it possible to shift down and fill that space with the multifamily, freeing up some room up on the top where that industrial building 1 could be shifted further south?
Yeah, as all these parts and pieces, and it's one giant jigsaw puzzle. And obviously, if you take out the corner, you create some flexibility to pull that down. And can you address the trustee's comment about that building, that single family home to the north? I think that gives a little bit more flexibility.
Okay, sounds good.
Other comments? Questions? Any other input from your team?
Yeah, a couple of things. So what we're here for tonight is, your feedback.
Mhm.
I think this is good discussion. I think it's great comments, great for everybody to be here. What we're looking for is, direction. Is this something that the Plan Commission, would like us to take to heart the feedback and the suggestions we received this evening and, come back with a revised plan to address some of the comments? I think we've heard a couple suggestions, a couple just general comments, and then come back at a later meeting and present again? Or is this something that the Plan Commission, quite frankly, doesn't have, any interest in seeing the land developed as we've presented, or the parts and pieces that we've presented? And, no harm, no foul, but if we could at least get that type of direction, that would be appreciated.
Mr. Nealis.
I would support bringing another plan back to the Plan Commission.
With any particular adjustment or?
I think what Trustee Baum had to offer made a lot of sense. And yeah, I think that commercial development at the corner is probably not appropriate, but besides that, I guess I don't have anything specific.
Yeah, for me, I think an alternative that would show removing that convenience store and sort of filling that in with maybe the multifamily and freeing up some room at the top to shift that industrial building to provide a greater buffering or maybe even reorientation in some way makes some sense to me.
Mr. Leshevsky.
I would echo that, kind of shifting the whole thing down, taking that corner piece, which is Mark C store, and again, trying to maybe push the apartments down through there to open up more space for industrial building number 1. One question I had, I guess it just occurred to me, is I heard a lot about traffic tonight. What are the likely ramifications on traffic in that area? I mean, like, for example, streetlights. Imagine we're going to see streetlights at some of the ingress and egress points or traffic circles. What are we? And I know maybe, Jeff, I'm looking too far down the road on that, but this is obviously going to impact traffic the day, the
Certainly.
Occupancy permits granted.
Well, there are 2 county highways, one being both actually being interstate connectors. are intended to carry a significant amount of traffic. And yes, traffic is a significant issue, but it's not as if the two highways currently are operating at insufficient levels of service. They're operating at level of service C or better according to just generalized traffic volume counts and capacity values. So yes, a traffic study would likely need to be done to fine tune, access locations and turning or intersection turn lanes and the like. And that's an important thing, but that's as we get, if we get further into the development, and I guess that's the point. Are we at that now where we should start fine tuning some of the direction, asking for a little bit more specificity as far as traffic impact study, the access points? I think we're still at maybe a concept plan stage, but that will come and that needs to be done as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see what can be done with the industrial to pull it back, and then how you can infill that corner with the multifamily to make it a better transition as we look to the west, going more into a single family, mid-range density type of environment. And that would be more for 2050 planning, but knowing that is now being discussed and offered as an option to the residents, I don't want to remove it from the table, even though it can't be openly, discussed, because it's not really part of this plan, because we need to go with the 2020 plan. 2020 plan does show the industrial in this area. I just think we need to pull it back from the roads if we can, and somehow buffer it or put it more in the background and not so much in the forefront. Anything else? Bilashevsky.
One last topic, Jeff. I remember you saying that when we're going over the 2050 plan, the elevation changes within here. And I believe where you see future developments, the two buildings in the upper right-hand corner, that you're significantly higher in elevation up there.
Domed.
So I guess one comment is, from County Line Road, Land Road, screening those buildings and such would be important, because they're going to be up there. And I believe the multifamily is going to be much lower. So again, it's just the prominence of those buildings back there, I think, light, et cetera, that Mike senses residents would want to see those more or less screened and not as bright as what we've seen maybe in other areas of the village at light, illuminating walls and things like that probably wouldn't be very appealing.
Well, I think actually where the multifamily is proposed now, there's a slight rise in elevation, because I think our original concern was not having an industrial building in the area right where the multifamily is proposed, because it would stand out more up on the hill as opposed to what may happen further to the north, where it does sort of taper down and level out. So this particular plan, utilizes the multifamily as a significant buffer, as well as, those two existing residential uses that are going to remain. They're got a significant amount of tree lines around them as well that will continue to provide the buffering that they provide now. I think the only area, frankly, that I had any concern about was in the southeast corner, industrial building number 4, and the buffering between the highway and that building. And, the developers provided, compared to what we saw in a real rudimentary plan, the significant more depth and landscaping, and the intention of providing the type of berming that they currently have developed along the Goldendale Road projects where they've built their industrial buildings. So from that perspective, I think we know what's needed in terms of buffering and landscaping, and that's being provided to the extent that it does a decent job as providing that buffer from the south.
Is there an importance to keep the clubhouse facing Highway Q, or is that something that you do normally to help show off or kind of entice her?
Yeah, it's typically our selling feature. So we put it, more proximity, closer proximity to the street. We put, our other outdoor clubhouse amenities and pool behind it, so you're not on the road. A little
Okay.
more privacy.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
Thing.
Bill?
I can't overemphasize the traffic situation there. I'm sure he'll do work on it. I'm sure there hasn't been time to do it yet. But I just picture at the layout we have now, the industrial buildings, when it's time to shift change or to leave, all that traffic going to be exiting on the south side there, IQ. It's time to go to work in the morning, people coming in and out of the rental units there. You see there's the one line going in, the other one going out onto Highway Q. So that really needs to be a contingent of the plan.
Yeah, we'll be doing a full scale traffic analysis. This is, conceptual at this point of what we think, some design concepts that may have some merit, but obviously we need to go through the full exercise, work with the village engineer and work with, both county DOTs as well.
And I guess the last thing I would add, I said it before, is I really don't like that convenience store or the gas station. I just don't like them. I don't like it there. Personal feeling, maybe.
Anything else that you require of us?
No, we appreciate your time allowing us to present, and I think we have some good marching orders and we'll get to work.
All right. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That takes care of all items under new business. Item A, again, thank you all for coming tonight. One moment, please. For coming, for your input, for your comments. If you have other questions about what you heard tonight or what was presented, please feel free to reach out to your representatives, but we will schedule another meeting to look at if they choose to come forward with another conceptual plan. That'll be put on the agenda, and we'll try to advertise that and get information out as best we can to everybody that's either here tonight or is interested in finding out about it. Ma'am. Okay, thank you. Oh,
There is a small parcel that is shown as an outlot that is, at this point, is intended to be set aside for a public well to be located in this vicinity. Not a water tower, but a well that would pump water into the overall system for the village. It's not intended to be a water tower site at that location.
ma'am. We'll put it out as best as we can for everybody to see.
I would suggest this. We have the Village of Germantown on our website. We have a feature called Zoning Hub. And within the Zoning Hub webpage, there's the ability to sign up for notifications. You can put in your email address, and there's a distance. You can identify a distance from your property, that anything that occurs or is posted to the Zoning Hub with information that falls within that prescribed distance, you would get a notification about. That's probably the best approach, unless you want to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely, sir. Well, we'll see what comes through. We've asked them to shift a fair amount of the building, so it would be, it could be as simple as taking what's there and wrapping it around the edges and filtering it in. Until we see that next conceptual, we'll see maybe some derivatives of it as we come forward towards a meeting, and there may be input from the village planner on that based on the comments and the notes that he's taken from your input, from our input, and from discussions. But it would be then proposed at the next meeting as that conceptual plan. Ma'am? In which industrial park, ma'am? There are some buildings there that have vacancies, but a lot of the buildings within our, what I'm going to call our old industrial park are actually adding on and putting more room in than being vacant. MGS has put a significant expansion on. Who else in that area?
One right next to the fire station.
Right. The Glue Dot people, I mean, most of the development in there is established businesses that are adding on to their buildings, and there may be some single unit, small, what I would call a component type of industrial buildings that would have a blank space here and there, but a lot of the bigger businesses in that industrial area have been adding square footage over the last 3 to 5 years in a pretty significant way. It doesn't fall under this jurisdiction in regards to when we're talking about this development. The Briggs and Stratton building is still operational. That particular building is not owned by Briggs and Stratton. It's owned by the development group. So even if it's blank, we still collect our property taxes towards increment to cover the TIF for it. It doesn't go as feral or without gathering any money towards the increment to offset its costs.
Another thing to point out is that unlike the Holy Hill Road interchange, where the Briggs and Stratton building and the other very large Zilber buildings that are geared specifically for warehousing and distribution, and the Capstone project on the south side of Holy Hill, these buildings are smaller in scale and are intended to serve a different demand for more production and in limited industrial, light industrial, and not full-scale 24-hour distribution, warehousing, e-commerce sort of stuff. Yes, the location is convenient to the interstate by way of Lannon and County Line, but there's a different product that's being offered here compared to the Goldendale Road, Holy Hill distribution area.
Okay. It would all fall within the guidelines of the EPA and the DNR within the state.
The village has certain performance standards that also have to be met with regard to noise and vibration and sound and dust and light. Those things would come into play, but typically, not knowing what users at this point might be going into these buildings, it's purely speculation. But if it's developed under our M1 limited industrial zoning, we don't have users that, pump out, clouds of dust and fumes and things of that nature. It's clean industry, and it's light, it's production, it's packaging, it's, in some cases, it is storage for other businesses elsewhere in the village.
Machining.
Machining, yes.
Sir? We're trying to create a transitional area from one to the next. So when it goes more into single family, it offers that transition from light industrial to single family as we head west up. It's not going to be in the industrial park. We're more looking at a transitional to the single family that could be projected as part of the 2050 plan west of Lannon Road and heading up County Line.
I'm not sure where you're not seeing green space that's provided as part of the residential component here.
And if the developer believes that the C-store is a necessity for the industrial park, the developer can go talk to the C-store operator and say, hey, can we move you back into the industrial park? That will leave that up to them to come up with the next go-round and see what they propose. And maybe the C-store is gone.
They're actually asking for our input based on the conceptual plan they propose and what we like and don't like about it and what we'd like to see different as part of this proposal.
And they're giving us examples of what has worked elsewhere where they've developed these already. So it's somewhat of a tested method of combining the residential and industrial. I don't see what's wrong with doing that.
Yeah, if you go into the website that and sign up for it, you will be noticed. And it would be more specific to this topic. So we don't have anything scheduled currently because it's up to the group now to decide, first of all, if they, based on the comments that they've heard, if they want to go forward and at what time they'll be ready for with their next conceptual plan to present. But they also are here asking for our comments, so it's not a template rubber stamp. They would make some changes in regards to what they've heard here tonight and for your recommendations. We don't have it here tonight, ma'am. It would be a conceptual. It's this.
We're not asking for an option that has entirely residential.
Because it's planned for industrial, light industrial as part of the 2020 plan. And that's why the developer comes forward with the proposal based on the land use plan. This is what we've shown for as part of the 2020 plan. This is what we found and have approved as accepted use in this area as part of the 2020 plan. If it wasn't going to be accepted, or if you didn't want that type of development in this area, it should have been pushed out and changed at the time that the 2020 plan was offered and approved. That's what's in place now. That's what's showing developers what's acceptable development in each of the areas. That's why the 2050 plan, as Mrs. Smythe keeps coming forward and mentioning, is important for input, because that sets the next template. So when a developer looks at his possibilities of customers and where they want to place them, they look at the land use plan for all the different municipalities and say, yeah, we think we can fit that there. And by the way, that's an accepted use for them based on their 2050, 2020 land use plan. Let's propose this as a conceptual. That's what's accepted here as part of the 2020 plan. That's why they're coming forward with it. The apartment complex is more for what we're looking at in transitioning out of that area to single-family residential that we feel is going to be going west and north in that area based on the sewer district that will expand off of there. That is a 2020 land use plan. It does meet it in regards to your light industrial, which is that pink or gray area, and then the red is all for commercial. Where you see red was always proposed and accepted to be commercial development within Germantown. We don't think that's going to happen, and that's part of what the revise of the 2050 plan is to remove the red. We don't see that much commercial going up along County Line anymore. We don't see big box commercial going down Appleton Avenue to Landon Road anymore, nor do we want it, because they're coming back for taxes year after year with their dark store theories and saying, you know what, that tax I paid last year based on my dark store, I want some of that back. Why do I want to keep building large store commercial if I have to give them part of their property taxes back year after year after year? Plus, we know the commercial component of what stores are today is changing. It's not brick and mortar as much as it used to be. And if it is, it's smaller. It's not bigger. So we need to look at that as we look at our next land use plan and what type of uses are going to be. in this type of an area. We know it's not commercial. We know where commercial dies. We can see it already. So to continue on with this plan and say, yeah, we still think commercial is going to be there, it's not right. It's not correct. But we think that could be a residential component west of Lannon Road and start going into a single family, not as dense, where it be quarter acre, half acre, full acre as you're going up towards White Horse Lane and Amy Bell. We see that as a possibility because the sewer line eventually, maybe not in my lifetime, but eventually is going to be going up county line and then coming back down along the back road into Appleton Avenue and then coming back down to Lannon as part of the sewer district. You see how there's connectivity already on the back side of that in the mobile home park. There's sewer and water there. So to start pushing it up and come back around creates connectivity and looping. That's all part of the grand plan. But where this becomes important is when you're looking at your land use plan and developers come forward, they feel that based on the acceptable land use, those are the types of things they're going to propose. If you don't like that or want it to be changed, then please become a very vocal participant in the 2050 plan so that when we start to develop that, we know we put the right places and the right development where you want to see it. I don't understand your question. How? It doesn't. We're looking at it as a transition.
So, can I answer that?
Yeah. No,
So, currently, the 2020 plan is the red and the purple. Okay. It's what's approved. Anybody can come in here and develop those by right. The zoning is for that. What? Red is commercial retail, and the purple color, as I call it, is industrial, light industrial. Okay. We have a belief that retail commercial is dead. So therefore, that red zone inside the circle really is not going to develop that way. And when you look at the surrounding areas, how is it best to transition from the retail commercial that we have on county line to the single family rural residential? What is the best blend to put between the two of them? A higher density residential is a better blend than industrial. So if I can change the red section on County Line and Lannon to residential, that creates a better blend for us. And that is what we're trying to do, is get complementary uses working together to go from one use to another use. And it's the industrial, the purple color, that is kind of clashing with some of our residential right now. How are we going to work around that? What is a better situation to have there? Correct. Yes. If a developer came forward and said, I want to do single family here,
he has as much of a point to propose that in front of this board and have the zoning and the 2020 land use plan changed to accommodate that. If that's what they feel they want to do, that's up to the developer.
do you have one that wants to come forward? That's,
Zoning is different than land use acceptability. The zoning is as it stands right now, which is agricultural.
zoned agricultural today.
Right.
But how will we know what the 2050 plan should be unless we consider all of our options? And that's what we're doing here. Yes,
Yes, that's part of the discussion tonight as well, which you're all welcome to stay. That's item C. Anything else on new business item A? Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your input and continue to feel to reach out. And if you have any other questions, you have our information or you can get it from the website. I welcome all and try to answer all.
Do you want to take a 3-minute
Let's
recess?
take about a 3-minute break for the room to clear and then we'll go back. And B is the Village of Germantown, agent for Kathleen Kraus, Linda Rotz, and Susan Knaple Searing, property owners of 77.5 acres located on the southwest quadrant of Donges Bay Road at Wasaki Road intersection. A consultation for the proposed 77.5 acre Omega Hills Business Park, including development of a new 30-acre, 126,300 square foot public works garage and recycling facility, and a 45-acre, 516,000 square foot industrial business park, up to 2 industrial buildings. And that is up for discussion tonight. Give us some more information, background on this new business item. Again, I'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzloff. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our second and last discussion item for this evening concerns the what I call the Omega Hills Industrial District, Industrial Park, and the DPW garage and recycling facility proposal. This particular project is a little bit further along in the process. There's been other discussions at the board level concerning the creation of a tax increment district to serve this area. And I'll give you a couple of highlights. So the purpose of tonight is to bring you up to speed as to where things are at, give you a little background information, and also to ask for your feedback concerning some specific components of the project, specifically the architecture, the materials, the color scheme, some things that have progressed to that point of specificity that we're hoping to get some comments from the Plan Commission members on, so those components of the project can move forward. With that said, we have our village administrator, Steve Krecklow, here tonight. Steve, did you want to just give a little bit of a background?
Thank you, Jeff. Just wanted to give some background on the process that brings us here tonight, why we're looking for a new site for our DPW facility, and how we came to this location. I'm sure you're all aware, currently our Department of Public Works is operating out of the old Village Hall facility up on Division and Fond du Lac, just north of Freistadt. That site is beyond the end of its useful life, at least several of the buildings at that location. There are also been some issues that have been raised by the Department of Natural Resources with some environmental violations. We were given a notice of violation in 2019 related to lack of sanitary sewer service to that facility, and with having trucks that are being maintained, oil, salt, detergents, et cetera, that without sanitary sewer service was flowing into the ditches nearby and causing an environmental violation. We did come to a temporary solution with the DNR on that issue. We're currently collecting runoff from that area in a holding tank and transporting the tank to one of our lift stations where it's emptied on a regular basis. However, the DNR also did indicate that we do need to find some more permanent improvements. They did give us a grace period, a non-specified time of grace period, but they did give us a grace period to look for a new facility or plan significant upgrades to the existing facility. I'd also mention we had another issue that the DNR raised in recent months related to some underground storage tanks that are also outdated and needed to be improved at the current site. So looking at all of those issues and spending about 18 months working through the process with the village board, we initially looked at improvements on the existing site that would have necessitated taking over the Little League diamonds on that location, as well as the existing footprint, and still would have been relatively tight fit for the size of facility that we need, not only for our current operations, but for future growth and operations as well. So we started looking for some other locations. The site that's before you here this evening, actually, the real estate representative from for the two parcels that are under consideration now came into Village Hall, not related to the DPW facility, but indicating that the owners of those properties would like to sell those for development and looking for information from village staff on what could be used. After meeting with the real estate firm, staff got together and thought this would be a potential site for the Public Works facility. Since that point, we've been working through plans of what that might look like, a potential layout. The plan that we're looking at currently, which Mr. Retzlaff will get into in a little bit more detail here shortly, would be located, the DPW site would be located on the Rotz Knippel property, while the Kraus property would be developed by a private developer. We have taken a proposal to the village board to form a tax increment district around mostly the Kraus property, and the tax increment district revenues would be able to support a portion of the common road, sewer and water extensions, and some stormwater facilities as well, reducing the cost on the property tax levy for the DPW site. So the rest, I think I'll leave to Mr. Retzlaff to cover, but unless there are any initial questions on that background or how we got to the point that we're at tonight. Thank you.
Emily, can we get the PowerPoint back up online, please? Okay, as Administrator Kreklow indicated, the 77-acre properties are highlighted in red and shown on the screen. The Kraus property is approximately 38 acres, and that's shaded in purple to the right, closest to the Donjas Bay at Wasaki Road intersection. That is the area that is intended to be in the TID and would be developed by a developer as part of the industrial park, if you will. The middle portion, the Rotz Knippel property, approximately 39.5 acres in size, does include about 12 acres of wetland that's shown in the blue area there. There are some other scattered, isolated wetlands on the property that have been deemed to be artificial. There's a couple of wetlands that have been identified that aren't artificial, that would need to be designed around as part of the DPW facility. As indicated, the DPW site is approximately 27.5 acres. This graphics is a close-up of where the DPW facility would be located on the southerly portion of the Rotz Knippel property. It would house a building that currently is shown as 126,300 square feet as part of the garage facility, if you will. That includes office space. And then the areas around it for circulation, recycling, the mulch, the brush, the yard waste drop-off, and processing areas, truck refueling, staging, and storage areas also located on the property. Again, the purple area would be the industrial park, if you will, and the area for TID number 9, approximately 37 acres, that would, at this point, is estimated, could be developed with industrial buildings anywhere from 1 to 3 buildings, upwards of 575,000 total square feet of industrial building space. Another graphic just showing the relative location of the properties. Again, in the foreground to the left, the DPW facility location and the TID industrial park area to the right, relative to basically located southwest and across the street, if you will, from the existing Germantown Business Park located to the north and slightly northwest. Some elevations of the proposed building are included in your packet. You can probably see them closer up on your screen for the north and the west, the east and the south. The east elevation would be, at this point, would be facing due east towards Wasaki Road. South would be facing, obviously, south towards the landfill properties. The north would face, be oriented towards Donjas Bay Road, and the west again to the railroad and the landfill, a portion of a landfill property owned by GFL to the west. The last graphic I've got shows some of the choices that need to be made with regard to the exterior concrete panel materials, whether they're have exposed aggregate with score lines or not. There's some color options that can be made. Some reveals as far as the design of the building itself, the architecture, and then the vertical scoring if there is any. So there's some choices to be made. And we do have some representatives from Grafe here this evening. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the exterior materials at this point, and tell us what sort of feedback you're looking for from us, and how we can help with regard to that.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Tillman. I'm with Grafe. And the 4 options that you see up here are all incorporated in the elevations that we looked at. So we weren't trying to reinvent something that a precaster wouldn't be able to do, but we wanted standard forms and procedures that were incorporated in this building. So on the right, you can see that the precast, well, let me talk about the building itself. It's all insulated precast. It's 126,000 square feet with a mezzanine above the office area and a mezzanine over by the mechanics bay for them to store engines, transmissions, major parts. And the colors, I had a little more radical one that I initially ran through, which was a darker blue where we'll say bronze is, and maybe a lighter blue in the horizontal banding, not necessarily saying that's the color, but saying you have the option to color it however you wish. So we have several options in colors. We can paint the color, and on a masonry panel, it's going to hold up, and it's pretty long term, but with any type of coating, you're going to have to do some maintenance to it. So whether it was unfinished concrete that we would spray a sealer on to keep the moisture out, or whether you paint it, you have to renew that. So a sealer doesn't last forever. A sealer might last 4 or 5 years, and you're out there sealing it again. You might actually get better wear out of a good quality masonry paint. Or we could use precast that was pre-colored. So they would put a coloring agent within the precast, and it would be monolithic in the panel, depending on the darkness of the color. It's always susceptible to some fading, whereas the painting, you could renew it every so often, or maybe you want a new look and somewhere down the line you wanted to change the color scheme. So what you see on the right side is that's a painted precast. On the far upper right is a horizontal scoring, which I'll show you on the elevations. Okay, so that would be, that's the tan color. So the colors that were chosen in this elevation were more earth tones. So the precaster can use a white cement, so we can get a rather whitish looking panel and not a gray precast panel that you look at and go, oh, that's precast. So what you see is whitish in color would be the white cement in it, the grayish area, and it didn't reproduce as well as we would have liked, is maybe a tan color. And that tan color could be done in staining the concrete or using different aggregates and then pressure washing it or sandblasting it and bringing the gray out or the tan out in that. And then the other one, which was reveals, is the rust color, which was intended as more accent banding. And it would occur on the west elevation, which is the west elevation is the main entrance. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just, maybe we've changed the orientation of the building several times, so you have to forgive me. My mind keeps.
Sorry. Keep changing it up.
So, the mind goes once in a while, so I'm just trying to recall which orientation it was, but based on how recycling and access around the site and the wetlands that were in there, this turns out to be the best traffic flow and the best use of the property. So the west elevation is really the main elevation that has the administrative areas looking towards the west. And then the dog leg on the bottom, which would be the north face of the south end of the building, is all the maintenance space. And those, we wanted to highlight all the equipment that they have in there while they're working on it. So you'll see that the overhead doors have a fair amount of glazing in there, so we can show the residents as they're coming to use the DPW. There's some interest in, you don't realize all the equipment that goes into DPW works until you start to lay a building out. And then you go, holy cow. I mean, we're talking about dozens and dozens of trucks and pickup trucks. And so the goal of the DPW was to kind of educate the residents of all the equipment that they have to service the community. So that's why the overhead doors have as much glazing as it is. So if you would go back to the four finishes. So the gray area on there with the blue windows, that's the horizontal banding. The area below that is the reveals, and they're not reveals at 6 inches apart, but actually there's reveals that might be 3 inches apart, and then there's a 6-inch gap, and then 3 inches or 6 inches, and the point was to highlight a horizontal banding with the reveals. Now the reveals are cast into the concrete so they can be whatever configuration we want them to be. This is what we're showing. And then on the far right, on the bottom is the beige, and it's just the scoring of the concrete panels. And if you go back to our elevations, you'll see that that's on the upper part of the elevation, where you see all the multiple lines would be the horizontal, or I mean the vertical scoring. And that doesn't change, or that's the color of the panel isn't changed, but by scoring it, it creates a texture and it gives some highlights to it. So basically, it's made up of 3 types of panels: the white cement in the majority of the panels, and then the horizontal banding, which is done in reveals, could be painted or could be cast in. It's just that the more intense the color is when you cast it in, the more the cost goes up, because they have to add that much more colorant. So as we would get into that, we would check economically what would be the best solution to gain what the appearance that we're looking for is at the most reasonable cost. And then the other area, which was intended to be a beige color, was just the scoring, which is an equal scoring at about 2 or 3 inches apart horizontally. So the building, because it's so big, we didn't bring the elevations in and out, even though you do have that appearance because of the dog leg on the bottom and the doors that are coming in to the wash bays are at an angle. So you have some natural ins and outs to the elevation just based on projections, but basically the walls are pretty level and smooth. What we did is we raised some panels to give it a different height, to break down the height so it's not one continuous coping cap, but we've added some dimension just by increasing the panel height without necessarily projecting wall panels out, which we could do that. But every time we do that, we're increasing the cost. And the goal was to provide everything they could, the DPW needed, in a reasonably cost-effective solution. And I would say where we started from when another firm had looked at the existing location, their building was about 175,000 square feet. And we did get it down to accommodate all the needs of all the departments, down to 126,000. So the goal of that was to provide what they needed at an affordable cost. The doors, the frames, the windows, those are all colors we can get selected from Conair or any other aluminum manufacturer. And those can be pre-finished. And where we've got hollow metal frames, we can paint that whatever color ties in to the aluminum color that we've chosen for the windows. So I guess other than the blue, and we're going back to the more earth tones, is you like that direction, or would you like us to explore a different direction?
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that's being put into making this building look good. I want our village buildings to look good. I just wonder, how visible is this going to be? It seems like it's pretty far off Dodges Bay. You know, are we really going to be getting a lot of value in putting, you know, a lot of that type of a look into this building? I know that, and as people drive in to use the facility, like the recycling facility, I understand that as well. But just it seems like it's pretty removed from Dodges Bay to be really putting a lot of attention into those types of details.
Well, the elevation of the building is actually pretty high at that point. And you will have traffic of residents coming and using it. That was one reason why they wanted a little something above just the standard precast panel. The east elevation and the south elevations have been toned down.
Right.
So we're really only attacking the north and the west, which would be more visibly accessible to visitors or to residents.
What is the difference in grade from like Dodges Bay Road to the building? Do you know?
It's actually higher. The building is actually higher than Dodges Bay Road. And from the driveway that we have, there is a direct line of sight. There are no obstructions because it's a farm field. So you're actually looking up at the building
As you drive in.
as you drive in. So we want the end of that building to be a little nicer, but the two inside corners where people are going to be engaging the building to be the nice spot.
Yeah.
So that's what we've.
And that makes sense.
And in response to cost, we have touch base with Stonecast, which is a local company. Not that they're going to necessarily get the project. They'd like to because they're a Germantown company. And we've talked price to make sure that we're not doing something that's just adding a lot of cost to the project. And one of the schemes that we had, because we offered 3 schemes to look at, more was, let's say more bare bones And then this was sort of the middle scheme, and then a little higher end scheme where we use cast and brick. And both the low end and high end were eliminated, and we stayed in the middle. And when I've talked to them about the reveals and the scoring, and that's no problem doing that on panels. They do that all the time. So as long as we're not casting brick in and we're doing something that's out of the ordinary, yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive than if it were a plain face to it. But really, and if you also look at a lot of the panels, we tried to repeat the panels. So we used the same panels. So once they set up a form, they could cast numerous panels without having to redo the form. So we've kept cost in mind.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Other questions, input? Mr. Leszewski?
I like the look of it. It sounds like maybe so, but no, I think it's architecturally interesting. I mean, from where I sit as a banker, as my day job, I couldn't really move anything around or make, but I think the colors are appealing, and I think the overall design is attractive. So that's my input.
Mr. Shadid?
So what is the public access to this facility? What will the public do here?
They drop off recyclables.
So is that like kind of the recycling center that's at the end of Main Street right now? Okay.
But this site actually combines 3 sites into one.
Okay.
So it takes the DPW and moves it over there. Another item that is also on there is a new salt shed, which is across the street from the DPW with some limited storage. And then you got the recycling center. So all of those items are now in one location.
So just out of curiosity, what's the path? A citizen enters the facility off of Donjas Bay. Then is the recycling center on the opposite side of the building? Is that the
it's on the south end of the
5.4 acre
building.
recycling? Okay.
Through the gate on the west end.
Okay.
See that word gate?
Right.
Go in there through that 12 by 12 guard shack. That cul-de-sac there. That cul-de-sac there is where the residents would drop off their recycling materials.
All right. Just curious.
And then it gets moved to the back of the site, which would be towards the bottom for
processing.
Yeah, shipping, processing.
We don't want the residents that far back into the operation.
Well, that's good. I was thinking somehow we're going to get down to where it says 5.4 acre recycling area.
No.
Another point to add is that we originally had that building located farther south, but there's a series of wetlands, and we've done investigations with the DNR, and we moved the building to the north to stay out of the wetlands. So the restrictions or problems that was going to give us, we've been able to work around.
Okay. Thank you.
Some of the things that have been mentioned in regards to the actual casting of the panels is, the scoring, the adding the colorant or painting, also of sandblasting and whatnot. Some of the earlier discussions that I've been involved with, I'd rather paint it than do the colorant because it fades over time, and either you're going to seal it or you're going to paint it within the same amount of time. Painting gives you the option to change it for future if you so chose to do that. But it also helps keep it fresh every whatever number of years, 5 to 7 or whatever is the predicted amount of when it would need to be repainted. I'm not big into sandblasting or opening up that face because this building needs to last for 30 to 50 years, and I'm not wanting to see a pile of gravel at the base of every wall because of erosion, from wind, rain, whatever, snow, freezing, melting. So the amount of scores that we have, I think, is acceptable, and I like the idea of going down the line of painting rather than adding colorant. I have no problem making that one area a little bit whiter, but that isn't along the same lines of actually adding a colorant to it. It's just a different ingredient. Mr. Nilles.
So regarding painting, I think that's a good idea too. Is it painting or staining of the concrete?
It's painting, well, you can stain the concrete by putting the additive when you mix the concrete. Or you can come back and try and stain it after the concrete's already been cast. But you can end up with some variances in color. So if you paint it, you'll have a uniform color to deal with that you might not get if you stain it after the panels are made.
Think of a stained concrete floor, how it's got that nice movement of color. It's great on a floor, but when you put it on a wall, it doesn't work. So you want a monolithic color on a wall.
Well, I believe DOT stains their concrete bridges. But, and they look fine to me, but that's a bridge versus a wall. So I don't know.
I don't know what they do.
Other questions, comments, input? Like the layout? You like the, come to the front, Jen.
I guess I'll just.
You still have the floor, Pete.
Do I? Okay. Yeah, I guess I do think it looks good. I don't have any issues with that at all. I did have some other questions, and maybe this isn't the time to ask them, but regarding the TID and the existing facilities that we've got and what's going to be happening with those. So can we talk about that now, or should we go through the architectural review?
Yeah, you can ask. We can try and answer whatever questions you have.
Okay, so regarding the TID, is this project dependent on approval of the TID?
No, it is not dependent on the approval of the TID. The TID benefits us, but it's not a mandate.
Okay. So then what's going to happen with those other sites then? The existing DPW facility, the recycling facility, are we selling them?
A lot of people have put their hand out to claim them.
Okay.
So much like what's happening at Lannon and County Line Road, we don't know until people bring stuff.
But the idea is that we would dispose of those.
Yes.
Possibly. I mean, we're not getting rid of the Little League fields.
No.
Because it's an established, usable complex. There's been discussions as varied of selling the land where the other buildings are on, or there's also been discussion of repurposing it for future police station facility. The recycling center that's at the end of Main Street, that's our property. I don't really see a reason to sell it. It kind of touches a lot of land that we already own in that area, and so it could be contiguous, but it also would provide a possibility of access to the river. We have no direct access to the river besides Schoenlofen Park, which I wouldn't call that a direct access. You get to see it here and there as you walk through it, but the recycling center as it stands and it would be replaced could be repurposed into something that could be more of a community involvement, or could be it could be a lot of things, but nothing that's been directed at this time. But it would still, I think, in my mind, would have an advantage to be held on to for future use.
Okay.
Scale wise, we did initially try this building on the initial DPW site. And basically the building filled the whole site. And there's yard storage that they need that's above and beyond recycling. We could barely fit the yard storage. There would have been no recycling or no salt shed left.
And that would be taking all the fields out as well. Jan?
The only question I have is, one of the things that, David, you mentioned on all these buildings in the industrial areas that we're putting up, they don't identify the entrance real well. Like it should be a bump out or a little, awning. And I don't see that here. That would be the only thing that I would kind of.
Look at this rendering.
Okay. It doesn't look like it on here.
Yeah, but if you look at it, it's not drawn 3-dimensional. It's drawn 2-dimensional. There's no shade and shadow on it that shows the articulation. But there's a canopy across this whole thing that sticks out above the word north. And underneath there is your main entryway, and that becomes your entrance to the building.
Mm-hmm.
It, in the images that we've got, it is very flat, but
Mr. Leshesky.
One thought on the facility itself regarding noise is because of the proximity to residential to the north and I guess maybe to the west, but backup alarms on the vehicles within there. I mean, I can hear when I walk my dog and I live near Kinderberg Park, I can hear them on that mountain in Menominee Falls at 4 o'clock in the morning. Beep, beep. I mean, it's loud, depending on the wind and then humidity levels. But this is going to be even closer. And I imagine going to be moving all that recyclable material around. Same thing. I know the hours are probably not 24/7, but still can be really annoying. And those beepers carry. They carry. That's a mile. You can hear those things. Again, up on top of the waste management pile, there's nothing to obscure it. That's a different jurisdiction. But here, you're down, I think, a little bit, but maybe not. You're up from what I heard too.
and thus when we were talking about where this should go, there were residential areas that we could put it in, and no, it's too noisy, it's too dirty for a residential area. This is a site that is away from the residential area. It is surrounded by other high impact, these other things you see underneath the word Donjas Bay. They churn up the dirt, they churn up the dust. They have all the trucks and stuff beeping and doing all that already.
You got the recycling center, you got GCL.
Yeah. This was a much better alternative than all the other locations that we looked at that were in residential areas.
I guess my point is maybe not so much for this, but just village wide. I mean, we work on beepers that were developed, I don't know, in the 1970s, right? It's to prevent me from running you over from here to there. I shouldn't have to hear it a mile away. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Anyhow, that's my end on that.
David and Tony, my name is Jeremy Hines with Grafe. I'm one of the civil engineers that will work on the job. I can tell you that when you look at the west elevation and looking west, you have a lot of tree line, and then you come to the railroad tracks. This site is about 10 to 15 feet higher than Donjas Bay Road. Your line of sight between the creek and that industrial park entrance to the north side of Donjas Bay Road, in between that section of roadway, if you look to the south, you'll see the what would be the north face of the building from Donjas Bay Road. You have a clean line of sight over the floodplain, over the creek, back to where that building sits. So you'll be able to see that north face of the building quite well. However, the west side is going to be buffered by a lot of tree lines. On the east side, you actually have to come up over a couple rises, including multiple tree lines. So from Wasaki Road, you will not, in my mind, be seeing the east side of this building. So that's why we dropped down the aesthetics on that side.
And those visual buffers will actually be audible buffers as well. When I put all the stuff on the south side of the building is blocking the sounds from going north.
Right. And I'm sorry, Steve.
I think I heard my first one today on an Amazon truck. I think it was backing up. I could hear it. I know, Jeff, you said before it's more of a whooshing sound or something. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
He was pulling out of your driveway, though.
It's my neighbor.
Other comments? Questions? Recommendations?
Objections?
No. Yes, there is.
There is a fueling.
There is, yes.
Didn't we hear when we approved the truck maintenance facility for waste management, the subject of the backup beepers came up. The lady that was here, that was the general manager or something, she brought up this other technology of this other warning system. Didn't we all hear that, I think, at the same time? I've never heard one of these, so you apparently have.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is an alternative, and you apparently know about that.
Anything else in regards to new business item B?
one last thing on where the residents dump off their recyclables. It's hard to see how big that circle is, but right now it's kind of like a central area with a lot of periphery to it, so it doesn't seem like it would get too backed up. Is this at least as large as what we have today? Because boy, in the fall and spring, you have a lot of traffic hitting that place on a weekend.
That's one reason the traffic lanes are the way it is that it's to stack a lot of cars waiting to unload, and then they get to the turnaround on the bottom, and is that like 50 feet?
Oh, maybe I missed it. What's the top one for the northerly most turnaround? Oh,
Right. And then that path, that road comes off of it.
so I wouldn't be dumping anything off at the northerly most. Okay, it's there. Yeah, that's the one. Again, it looks small to me, but
You might be doing it if this is closed.
only my refrigerator.
No, we hope not, but as part of being the public street, then you have to create the regular size cul-de-sac for any truck or fire equipment to turn around in, and then the drop off is a little bit further down past the guard shack. Anything else? Anything else from us? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, anything else? No? All right, new business item C is 2050 Comprehensive Plan Project and April 11th workshop discussion. Jeff?
Yeah, this is more just a reminder of our workshop on April 11th. Again, the focus will be on the 2050 plan, the Rural Preservation District, the boundaries, the land use matrix, and the development policies. The meeting is here at 6:30 p.m. on April 11th. We'd like at this point to encourage the Plan Commission members to arrive approximately 6 o'clock because we'd like to hand out some instructions. We're going to have a sort of a charrette style of format with tables and small groups, 6 to 8 persons per table approximately. We're going to start with a brief presentation and followed up with some hands-on land use and development exercises. We're still working on the final details of those. And we'd also like to work in, like we did with our first couple of workshops, the live interactive polling with the Mentimeter software in your mobile phones. We can take some live polling and some questioning. And we're thinking of some unique strategy on how to approach that as well that would involve people at the end of the day coming forward possibly and sharing their opinions and some quizzing about what people are saying and what the reaction is, sort of an anonymous, live real-time reaction sort of thing. So we're working out the details, but that's the gist of the workshop. It's going to be focused on the Rural Preservation District and our overall policies for development, because it does, at this point, what's been proposed and recommended by our consultant is a departure from what our current policies are. And because it's a significant departure, we need some feedback from those. Advertising, contrary to what was said earlier this evening, we are advertising by sending out notices with the sewer bills for those people who are in the sewer service area. We are also sending out postcards to everybody else who isn't in the sewer service area. So to the extent that we are able to do so, we've updated our database and we're sending a personal invitation to all property owners in the village, as well as posting on our social media sites, the newspaper, our sign out front. We're trying to put up one of our banners that we have. We're going to find a new location for that. So we're anxious, like everybody, to get back in the swing of things and then pick up on the 2050 plan and move forward.
Great. Any questions on that? Mr. Nellis.
Is there a contingency plan if we get an overflow crowd in here?
Conference room.
We'll work out down the hallway if we have.
I hope so. I mean,
Right.
I would, it'd be great to do so. And then if anything, worst case scenario, I mean, we get how many people in here, Steve? What's the limit? It's above the door. Okay.
Yeah, we have 90 chairs. We think we're going to get around under 100 people is the expectation. You know, our first workshop was the best, the most successful one, and we had 65.
No, if we fill the room, that's great. And if we need extra, we can always flow into the hallway and set up monitors if need be. But that would be a nice problem to have. Anything else in regards to item C?
The only thing I would say is that at this point, if you could pencil in on April 25 for a possible special plan commission meeting. And the focus would be 2050 planning.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night.